All right, Nick, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons' big change at the quarterback position brings big results. Michael Penix looked pretty good, I'd say, in his debut. Very interesting time for the Falcons, but we're not the only ones talking about it. There's people around the league, former Falcons coaches, former rival players that are talking about exactly how good Michael Penix Jr. looked. But before we get into that, I'm Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, Michael Penix Jr. gets a big win for the Falcons, looking really good, but we're not the only ones talking about it. Let's jump straight on into it. Talk about who all has Michael Penix on notice. This is from SI.com. It says, he can really throw the ball. I mean, he has a laser. This is from Joe Witt Jr., defensive coordinator from the Commanders. He's going to be protected by a veteran offensive line, and so they'll be able to do a good job of protecting them, and we have to do a good job of changing the looks and making it tough for him. You found out this is a rare competitor from Dan Quinn, what he said about Penix. Going into the whole process, you knew this is a talented guy. He could deliver. He could deliver the whole process. He could process quickly, and so this is his way of playing different than our way of playing. We move Jaden a lot to do what Michael Penix can do in a more traditional way. He has a strong arm and can rip it anywhere. Then, talking about a former Falcons rival, Carolina Panthers great Luke Kuechly, said even though his numbers weren't all that great, 202 passing yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, Penix looked good on film according to Panthers legend Luke Kuechly. Here's what 59 told Kay Adams about Penix's NFL debut early this week. He said, Michael Penix looked really good. He played with a ton of confidence. Now, this is Michael Penix's first start. I think he looked really good. I think there's a lot of good stuff to bring up, but these coaches around the league, guys that are about to face him, former rival Panthers player Luke Kuechly talking really highly about him. I think these are all good signs for Falcons fans. You should be pretty excited about what Michael Penix has done so far. Nick, I'm curious what your thoughts on this one are, but before we get to you Falcons fans, before you hear our opinions, we want to hear yours. What did you think about Michael Penix's debut? Do you think this is what's going to turn the franchise around? Is he the future? Is he the next great Falcons quarterback? Are you still a little bit unsure? Or did you see something you didn't like? Let us know in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what do you think about all of this praise for Michael Penix?
Look, it's obviously a great sign that you have so many different people from so many different arenas being very impressed by Michael Penix Jr. And look, a lot of people gave the Falcons a lot of crap for drafting Penix over guys like Dallas Turner. It looks like, I know one game sample size, but it looks like it was a pretty good move because if you listen to the defensive coaches and former defensive players, it's clear that Michael Penix has that physical gift, that arm talent, that mobility element too, that makes defensive coordinators, defensive players very uncomfortable, right? And in today's NFL, that's what you need. It's not like it was 15, 20 years ago where it's all about reading the defense, hitting the check down, making the right read on time, right? The game has changed. The way you can be great offensively is you have to have a guy at the quarterback position that can do things that the defense can't handle. Now, you can do that a couple different ways. You can be like Lamar Jackson, who's just a phenomenal athlete who can scramble and run on top of throwing that just breaks the defense. You can have a guy with insane physical arm talent and some good mobility as well, like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. But the reality is, you've got to have a guy that can just break a defense. And that's what we're hearing from these comments right here, whether it's Witt, whether it's Quinn, whether it's Kuechly. You've got defensive assistant coach, head coach with defensive background. You've got, future Hall of Famer player Luke Kuechly here, who are all saying the same thing. Penix Jr. is the kind of guy that can break a defense with his physical gifts while also having a great maturity. Granted, he played a lot of college football. He's been around the block. He's a very, very old rookie, which I think actually works to his benefit. I think the Atlanta Falcons have to be very excited about what they're seeing, not just from Penix's performance on the field and what he could do the rest of the season, to what everybody is saying, right? Because it's not going to be perfect, right? He's going into start number 2. There's going to be some bad throws, some misreads, some turnovers over the course of the next couple games. That's going to happen. But I think for the first time, really since the Matt Ryan era, let's be totally honest, that the Falcons have someone at the quarterback position in Penix Jr. that actually gives some hope for the future, right? Kirk Cousins came into the season bringing that hope. But once we saw him early in the year trying to come off the Achilles, it was kind of hit and miss. And by the season wore on, he just isn't the same player. It's very obvious to anyone watching him that Kirk Cousins has just fallen off a cliff. It happens to every quarterback once they hit a certain age, certainly after a major injury. Look, we saw with Aaron Rodgers, right? Coming off the Achilles this year, he's been quite horrible at times. Michael Penix Jr. gives the Falcons hope. He gives them a future. I know, again, a lot of people weren't huge fans of this pick going back in the draft, but right now it looks like the Falcons 100% made a really smart decision. I love the fact that the defensive guys are so worried and so impressed by Penix Jr. That's kind of a leading indicator, because if the opposition is worried, that means you got a special player.
Yeah, Nick, and I think if you look at the data on Penix Jr. as well, it shows a lot of good things. And I think you brought up the point where he's a rookie, it's his first game out. There's gonna be a little bit of a learning curve in some things, but where he was most talented in college and where he did his best work was down the field across the line of scrimmage. And if you look at the data, that's where he's done really good passing. He's deep ball, 20 plus yards on the field. All of them he's thrown so far this year, he grades out a 90.5 on PFF, which is really good. His medium grade passes, from that 10 to 19 yards, he's at a 71.7, which is a pretty solid score there as well. And even his short passes from just at the line of scrimmage to beyond, 85.5. So that's all good. I'd say the only thing he really kind of struggled at, if you would call it a struggle, was behind the line of scrimmage. Those screens, dump offs, things like that are more timing based, is going to take more time from him to actually learn how to do that. It's not that natural given gift these other type of passes are. And he's still graded out with a 64.6, pretty much a 65 grade, which isn't bad on PFF scale. It's not like these elite levels that he's doing these other things at. So I think when you look at what Penix has done, even the interception, it bounced off Pitt's hands. It necessarily wasn't his fault. So it's still, there's a lot of really great stuff we saw from Penix. He didn't really do a whole lot of bad. And I'd be excited that it shows. This is a guy that just needs a little bit more time. Heck, it's his first full game in the NFL. I've never seen someone come out and just be perfect from day one in the NFL. It rarely happens. So Michael Penix Jr. doing all the right things. He's looking really good. And where he even struggles is where he's supposed to struggle. You got to get a little bit of timing together. You have to get used to the speed of the game, the new speed of these defenses in the NFL, and he's going to excel. He looks really good, and all of the data, all of the talking heads, all of the defensive coaches and even rivals are talking really highly of Michael Penix. So if I'm a Falcons fan, I'm feeling pretty good about this pick so far.